Thank you so much, Margie. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the Spring 2024 UCCS English Department Alumni Panel. You are going to meet three amazing people tonight. So in just a few moments, you're going to meet Taylor Burnfield, Kayla Schock, and Corey Thompson. They all finished their degrees in English at UCCS, and they're going to talk to us about their careers. I am Dr. Ann Amakuchi. I'm a faculty member in the English department, and I'll be your host for this event. As you've likely seen, this event is being recorded, and the recording will be posted on our website. I have a few shout outs that I want to give. First of all, a huge thank you to Margie Oldham in the LAS Dean's office. Margie is amazing in so many ways. Thank you for everything that you do. And she is also a UCCS English department alum. So thank you for your help with this event, Margie. And second, I want to say thank you to Joe Brucker. Joe is an English major who will be graduating this semester, and he's also an LAS student ambassador. So thank you, Joe, for your work on this event. The way this will work is we will meet the panelists first, and then I have some questions I'm going to ask them, and then we'll open it up to questions for anybody. So if you think of a question, you're welcome to post it in the chat at any time. Joe's going to be keeping an eye on the chat. And then when we open it up for questions, you can post a question in the chat, or you can unmute and ask a question live. We're just really glad that you're all here, and I would be remiss not to say a huge thank you to our three panelists. We know you have very busy lives and schedules. We're just so grateful to you for taking this time out of your schedule to spend with us. So let's meet our panelists. I am going to go to Taylor first. Would you introduce yourself, tell us what position you currently hold, and just give us a brief overview of what your job entails? Taylor.
Hi, I'm Taylor Burnfield. So I'm a marketing specialist at the Air Force Academy. And so what my job is basically the academy. Most people think of it as just a university, but it's also an active Air Force base. So I work more on the Air Force base side, and what the marketing office does is we market all the different facilities on the base to not only the students, but also the people who live on base, because there's neighborhoods and there's people who live there. So a part of my job is just marketing all the different facilities we have. Like we have a library, a gym, different stores, different retail stores, a golf course, a bunch of different things. And so I maintain our website and our social media. And then I also help out with, we publish a magazine every 2 months. I do photography, video. I'm in the process of starting a podcast right now. So I get to do a lot of really cool things and get to work with a lot of really cool people from all over the world here at the Air Force Academy.
Thank you so much, Taylor. Let's go next to Kayla for her introduction.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Kayla Schock, and I am the legislative liaison for the Colorado Department of Corrections. This is my 3.5 legislative session. I've worked with the state prior with 2 other departments, just started with the DOC 7 months ago. So every state department has a legislative liaison. And so it's an honor to kind of represent the department as that conduit between the governor's office, the legislature, and, the goals of our different departments, and connect everybody with subject matter experts, craft budget and policy items, and then kind of just provide that connection point to learn more about our individual departments. So great to see you all and happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Kayla. And finally, let's get an introduction to Corey.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. So I'm a law clerk to Stephanie Scoville in the Denver District Court. So we're in a civil docket, and so we only handle civil cases as opposed to criminal cases. At any given time, we have about 200 cases or so going through the docket. Some of those are very hands-off and we don't do too much with, and some of those are very involved. My job is primarily to help the judge in researching legal issues and then writing draft orders for her to approve. So my day-to-day largely includes just researching and writing. Separately from that, I'm also the bailiff for trials. So any trials that we have or any hearings, I'd be in the courtroom overseeing the hearing, and then also drafting a minute order, which is essentially just a quick summary of what happened in the courtroom. And yeah, I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you, Corey. I'm going to stop sharing my screen just so we can all see our panelists as we move forward. So the first question I have for you all is, what has your path been to your current job? Could you tell us a little bit about the professional path that you took between when you graduated with your degree in English until now? And anybody who wants to could go first.
I guess I can go first. So I graduated in December of 2021. And while I was a student, I created a LinkedIn profile and I always kept that active, and was just always networking on there while I was a student. And so by the time I graduated, I had a pretty good following on LinkedIn. And I had started to get messages from recruiters pretty quickly after graduating, but no one who reached out to me, nothing really interested me until the Alumni Association at the Academy reached out to me. And I was not familiar with the Alumni Association. I wasn't even familiar with the Academy at that point. But they had reached out to me to come in for an interview for a position, a writing and a photographer position. So I interviewed for that and was hired for that. And I worked there for a little over a year. And then I left that position before working in my current position. But that's really how I ended up at the Academy, is just getting contacted by a recruiter on LinkedIn. And if they hadn't reached out to me, I don't think I ever would have thought to apply at the Academy, because I don't have a military background whatsoever. But I'm really glad that they reached out to me, because I'm, really happy in my current position.
I can jump in next. So right before I graduated college, I actually was doing a lot of soul searching, a lot of research. I was like, I have no idea what I want to do with my life next. I stumbled across a fellowship, the Elpamar Fellowship. See, Suhan's on the call. He actually wrote my letter of recommendation like 4 days before while he was in India. It was like such a crazy thing. So I kind of owe it all to him. But yeah, got accepted into the fellowship. It was a really unique opportunity to learn more about how deep Elpamar, the clock tower, all sorts of great things that they do in Southern Colorado, rural Colorado, through grant making and philanthropy. Then COVID happened, so we all kind of, dispersed online. I ended up getting the opportunity through my Air Force Reserves unit. So I'm still in the Air Force. I joined in 2016. And we had the opportunity to deploy. So I deployed, kind of left Elpamar, got the chance to do a little bit of networking virtually while I was gone with some Elpamar Fellowship alumni, and they connected me with the Colorado Office of Economic Development and International Trade, and they were hiring a legislative kind of aid sort of thing to help with their legislative goals. Got the job, and then bounced around to higher ed for like 1 month after 2 years with OEdit, and then the opportunity with DOC came up to work under the first Black executive director of the department, which is amazing. And, getting to speak with him and learn more about his goals for rehabilitation and reducing recidivism, I was really sold to kind of jump on board and help the department with their goals. So that's kind of what brought me to where I am today.
So I graduated UCCS in 2018 and then went into law school in the fall of 2019. So law school is a 3-year program. The nice thing for anyone, hesitant going into a 3-year program, the nice thing with it is there's a good balance of, I think, classroom time and practical experience. So plenty of experience. As relevant to my law clerk position, while I was in law school, I interned with 2 federal judges, and as a judicial intern, you're largely just kind of a junior law clerk, so doing largely the same thing, just less efficiently and not on a full-time basis. And then I graduated law school in 2022, and sat for the bar exam. That's not always required. You know, strictly speaking, I'm not representing anyone, so some judges don't require you to have a law license. But yeah. Got my law license, and then I had met Judge Scoville actually just before she was appointed to the bench. I was interning at the state attorney general's office where she worked, and we had already connected through that, and I knew that she was a great mentor and someone that I wanted to continue working with. So it was a very kind of fluid thing, moving from working for her at the AG's office into becoming her law clerk.
Thank you all. These paths are so wonderful to hear, and I'm guessing everybody is noticing how there are some unexpected pieces, some surprises along the way. And so building on that, would any of you be willing to share what parts of your career path have been unexpected or have surprised you, and why?
I guess I can go first. I think what surprised me the most is just how much I enjoy working in a military environment, because as I said before, I don't have a military background. And if I wouldn't have been contacted by that recruiter, I wouldn't have ever have thought to have applied at the academy. And it's definitely a very different world than the civilian world. It feels like it has its own language sometimes, because there's a lot of acronyms. And so I've learned a lot, and I feel like I've learned a whole new language, a whole new culture that I'd never been exposed to before, but I really enjoy it. And I just really like, working with so many different people who come to the academy from all over the world who have such amazing backgrounds and stories, and getting to meet them and talk to them is just my favorite part of my job.
Yeah, I can jump in. I think, before law school and even a little bit in law school, I think there's this perception that a lawyer is someone who's, this all-star public speaker, and especially going into litigation. When I first went into law school, I kind of had that perception and thought that I was going to move into more of a transactional realm of law, and quickly realized that I loved being in the courtroom. And I had this perception that I wasn't a good enough public speaker because I hadn't felt like I was that all-star public speaker. And it surprised me going in just how much of that perception it's not necessarily wrong. It's just kind of a different way of thinking about it. I mean, I think the best litigators are they're incredibly well prepared. And they're not just like shooting off the cuff like we might think, but they've thought through a case very deeply and intensely. And so I guess I never pictured myself being a litigator coming into law school, but here I am.
I guess for me, if you've been to the state capitol, there's like 3 floors that kind of make the most sense. So you have your basement, which is where the cafe is, where we all sit, like sending emails, going like crazy. The first floor is where the governor is, and then the second floor is where you lobby. And when I first started, I was like, I'm a basement girly. I do not want to be on the second floor. I would rather die than ask somebody to be my bill sponsor. And then today I was sending multiple texts out to budget committee members, and being like, please, can you like reconsider your decision? And they actually did on the microphone, which they didn't tell me. So I was like, cool, leave me on red. That's fine. But really just surprised like how fast democracy works, and being able to actually be a part of that. I never really thought I had, the want or desire to do that. And some days I really don't, but it's really engaging and a grateful process to be a part of. And I don't know, I'm grateful I get to pay attention every day to what happens in our state. And so that's something I never thought I'd be able to do before this job.
Thank you all for that. I think what I'm really hearing in all of your stories is, if we looked at any of you from the outside, we'd say, oh my gosh, they have this big, amazing job. Like Corey said, we'd say they're all superstars. How did they do it? But you're helping us see, no, you don't just blink and get there. You've worked hard and you've taken steps along the way. So the next thing I'd like to ask you is, what resources or people have been helpful along your career path?
I can take that one first. So like I mentioned before, just I think promoting myself on social media, specifically LinkedIn, really helped me get to where I am now. Once I did start working at the Alumni Association, I really made an effort to get to know all the different people and all the different departments at the academy because it is such a huge entity. It's the entire campus is like about 20,000 acres, and you have different departments and buildings all over the place. And so I really worked hard and just networking and getting to know people in all the different departments. And that really helped me move into the position I am now with the marketing office. And I've developed some really close friendships with all the different people here at the academy. And it's amazing to know all the different opportunities that are available here. I never would have thought that there would be so many different paths I could take here, just because there is so much going on. So I think just networking both in person and online has really been a great resource for me.
I can take this one unless Corey, you like feel strongly. Cool. So honestly, like I see tons of amazing, like familiar faces on this call. Like truly joining the English department was the best thing that I ever did. I started as a sport management major year one. Absolutely was like, what if I hate college? Like, I don't know why this like sucks so badly. And then I finally was like, oh, I found a department where I feel supported. And like anytime when I had a question about feedback for a paper or like, is this job right for me? Or even past college and just being like, hey, can we catch up and like, let's get a cup of coffee and like be able to just bounce ideas off of somebody. Like it truly started at my UCCS journey, and then being able to find mentors throughout my military career, all my time during state government. It's really meant a lot to me to be able to be propped up and supported. And you know, also have that belief in myself too, right? Like that didn't happen overnight. Being able to be confident in my skills and abilities, like all of that is because of the people that helped me throughout my journey to now. And you know, hopefully one day I can be that for somebody too. But I truly do like, I think it all started here with the English department. So I'd be happy to sit on any Zoom call at any time of day for you all.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of Kayla's answer, I think there were two particular resources that come to mind with your question. And the first is your professors. I mean, I wasn't the kind of person who knew I wanted to go to law school. You know, you'll hear those stories of somebody who, since they were 5 years old, you know, knew they wanted to go to law school. And that was not me at all. It was a very slow process. It was, you know, talking to professors about, I'm not sure what I want to do. What do you think? And then once law school had kind of been on my radar, not only talking to you know, the professors that I had classes with, but talking to professors in the political science department that I had just never met. And I just saw their, you know, their emails online and reached out to them. And they connected me to some other people who connected me to, you know, future mentors in the field. And so I think talking to your professors is one of the greatest resources that you can have. And kind of related to that, like Kayla was saying, mentors in the field. I had the opportunity early on to intern at the district attorney's office in Colorado Springs. And, you know, that opportunity connected me with judges in the county court. And all of these mentors were able to kind of direct me and tell me, here's how to get through the law school process. Here's how to get through the law school application. I mean, just getting into law school is kind of a hurdle. So, so really having those resources and those personal connections made all the difference for me.
Thank you all so much. And by the way, if anyone is interested in looking into a law career, Dr. Collins is the person that Corey worked closely with, and she's the perfect person to reach out to and just pick her brain about law school and options on that career path. I promise that I didn't force the panelists to say, talk to your professors, but that's a really important message here. We love to talk to students. You are never bothering us when you stop by our office or send us an email. And like we heard from everybody, reach out. Even if you don't know a professor, don't hesitate to reach out. So I want to get a little sense from our panelists of the connections between what they studied in English at UCCS and what's happened since. So my next question is, how has studying English at UCCS informed the work you've done since graduation? Who would want to take that one first?
I can jump in. I feel like in any role in the legislature, there's so many like hours in the day and you have to get your point across. Like today I was sitting in the lobby trying to find a senator, and there were at least like 300 other people just like waiting in line to also talk to them. And it's like, how do you get your point across concisely? How do you get it in a way that they'll understand what you're asking for? Because sometimes you'll be texting them while they're in committee on the mic saying things, and you're like, wait, no, say this, or this is actually like the whole request in forced like sentences. Like, how do you get those messages across in a way that's plain language everybody can understand? Because there's all the law jargon and statutes, and then you have to get that back to, you know, your staff and your department. And how can a correctional officer understand the law that's impacting their job, right? And so being able to switch audiences and make sure everybody understands something that's been really helpful. If I could get through critical theory, I feel like I could get through anything now. So I think like those lessons of just being able to, you know, read and summarize has been super helpful.
Yeah, if I could just jump in. Anecdotally, a couple weeks ago I had a case, and it hinged on the interpretation of a particular statute, and what mattered was whether this word was being used as a pronoun or an adjective. And I'm sitting there thinking about it, and it came to me like a light bulb, just diagramming the sentence. It brought me back to that advanced grammar class all those years ago, and writing out the sentence, and is it a noun, and where's the verb? And so of course I use that. And like I mentioned, I mean, the bread and butter of my job is researching and writing. And so of course, being able to read large amounts of material and comprehend it, and effectively convey information through a written medium. Of course, I'm using that every day. And there's countless ways that I think rhetoric and even technical writing fits in. I think legal writing is a very, it's a fun mix of technical writing and creative writing as well. But I think the most fun way that you know, my English degree informs what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis is really that critical analysis and critically considering what I'm reading. I mean, I think there are people who come in and are much more of a passive reader in some of this material, but as a lawyer, you have to be an active participant. I mean, you're in there reading and questioning you know, what a statute means, what the writers of the statute had in mind. When you're reading an order or an opinion, you're questioning and kind of interrogating that that order and opinion and the underlying policies and principles of it. And then, of course, when you're reading, you know, what we would refer to as discovery, but more like depositions or trial testimony, you're critically reading that and again, almost interrogating and not taking everything at face value. And then I think another fun thing that being a lawyer has to offer is, you know, pulling out themes. I think being a literature emphasis, I think so much of what we studied in literature was thematic, and I think that's life, and I think that's trial too. I mean, in a trial, you're pulling out themes in motions. Particularly, we get a lot of pro se motions where it's almost like the kitchen sink approach of arguing, where they're just throwing everything out there, and you kind of are pulling out the themes of what are the big arguments, what's the overall argument, you know, within all these smaller arguments. And so, you know, pulling out themes and understanding the bigger picture is incredibly important.
With my position, I work with so many different audiences, and I feel like my degree in rhetoric has really kind of helped me understand different audiences and what their needs are and how to get my message across to them. Because, like with the academy, you have the students, but then you also have the active duty military people who live on the base. So, those are two very different audiences with two different needs. And then you also have all the different businesses we have on base. So, like the library has a very different need than the gym. And so, not only understanding our audience, but then also understanding our different businesses and what message are they wanting to get across. And sometimes they might not always know what their message is. And so, working with them and talking with them and trying to help figure out how you can bring more customers into their business. So just understanding audiences and how to get a message across. I feel like my English degree has really helped me with that. And it's also helped me be a better storyteller, because I think storytelling is an important part of marketing, not just in actually writing, but also telling stories like through graphic design, through colors, through fonts, through photography, through video, through podcasting. There's a lot of different ways you can tell a story. And then also in my office, I'm really proud that I'm the person that people come to, if they need help with writing. Like if somebody's working on something, I'm always the person people come to talk to, like, hey, can you look at this before I publish it? And so I'm just really happy that I have that reputation, and I'm able to be that person for other people in my office.
Thank you all. And just to give a quick update to our attendees, I have two more questions I'm going to ask, and then we'll open it up to questions from anyone. So start thinking about what questions you might want to ask our panelists. You can put a question in the chat. If you have a question that you don't want everyone to see, you can send a direct message to Joe and he can ask it for you. And when we get to that point, you can always also unmute and ask questions. So we heard a bit about how studying English informs the work our panelists do. And now I'm wondering, for any of you, are there ways that studying English just plays into your life outside of work that you'd want to share?
I can go first. So I feel like since I completed my English degree, it's kind of hard for me sometimes to enjoy entertainment because I overanalyze everything now and I see just hidden meanings in everything. So like movies, TV shows, books, music, like I don't see it the same way anymore. Like I feel like there's multiple layers of meaning, and things just aren't as superficial to me as they used to be.
Yeah, of course, English is informing a lot of what I'm doing just on a day-to-day in terms of communicating. Anytime you're communicating with anyone, I mean, really, you're using those background skills. And then, of course, I love being inspired by reading a great piece of literature. Something that I loved doing before becoming an English major, and during, and now after.
I think the biggest one for me is probably that confidence to speak up. When I became an English major, I also became a tour guide. And if you knew me before either of those things, I did not open my mouth. Like I literally sat in class, didn't say anything. Even in my personal life, was pretty passive and quiet. And then actually remember in my African American literature class, we were graded by participation, and part of me was like, that's so unfair. Like, I just don't want to speak up. But then I got a really good piece of feedback from my professor, Dr. Ortega, of saying, like, just your voice is valuable, especially in this class, right? Of like, if you're not telling your stories, how can you be heard? And that, sorry, today's been a crazy day, but it really resonated me with work and saying if I didn't speak up, we wouldn't have funding for some great positions who have been doing really great work for retention, or outside of work, being able to advocate for things that are really important to me in my relationships and friendships and with the people I care about and love. And, just those little things of those interactions, it really has made me such a more confident person, being able to just share my stories and not being so afraid of like what impacts my words have. They do have impacts, which I think is really important, but not being afraid to share it, I think is the biggest lesson that I learned.
Thank you all. And thank you for sharing that personal note, Kayla. I think what I'm hearing across all of your answers is that just the things we study and the places we invest our time just shape how we see the world. They shape us as humans, and in personal and in professional ways. So thank you all for that. So my $1 million question is, what advice would you give to English majors who aren't sure what career path to pursue?
I can go first. So when I was still in school, I did several internships, and I did internships outside of the English department. And I think just exploring things outside of your comfort zone is really useful, just because you don't know what you're interested in or what you're good at until you try it, and you might fail at certain things, but at least like, okay, this isn't my place, but maybe there's something else I can do. And just going back to what I said earlier about working in a military environment, I never would have thought to have applied at the academy if they hadn't reached out to me first. So I think when you're looking for jobs, even if you think something might not be the right fit for you, just apply anyway and just see what happens. Because you could surprise yourself. And maybe if you don't even feel like you're qualified for something, just apply for as many jobs as you see that you can find. And you just never know where your talents are, and you could surprise yourself. So I just say take risks, get outside your comfort zone. And I think eventually, everybody will figure out where they're meant to be.
That's probably like the exact thing I was going to say. Since college, like I've worked at an art gallery, I've, been a nanny, I've done so many weird things, joined the military, and then I've worked on, if you asked me if I was going to work for the prison system, like earlier this year, I would have been like, you're out of your mind, or earlier last year. So I think just being open to saying yes, and just seeing what you can surprise yourself with. I think the beauty of an English degree is it is so versatile, and these skills can go truly anywhere. And people will be begging to have your skills of like being able to be concise and research and dive in and be able to have that depth of knowledge. And I think that's really important. So yeah, just figure out kind of where you want to shoot your arrow, or just, go blind and do whatever. I think it's just such a great opportunity that we all have right now.
Yeah, I think I just would repeat what my fellow panelists said. I think being open-minded, and I mean, a lot of this is informed by what helped me, right? I mean, I think talking to your professors, and talking to people who aren't your professors. I mean, reaching out to other professors. I wouldn't have. I'm fairly certain I wouldn't have landed in law school, and consequently as a law clerk, if I hadn't reached out, to political science professors. And so talking to your professors. And I think another piece of interning is just working in the community. Such a big advocate of kind of giving back to your community. And so there are so many opportunities to get involved through volunteering or interning in the local community level that'll show you, community needs. And I think that can inform decisions of what you want to do in the future.
Thank you all for this advice. So we want to transition now and see what questions you all have. If you'd like to unmute and ask a question live, would you raise your digital hand so I can call on you? Or we'll also give you a minute here to think about questions if you want to put some questions in the chat. And while I'm giving everybody a minute to think about questions, how about let's get our panelists' opinion on pineapple on pizza, yes or no? I'm very much a yes to pineapple on pizza. Corey, how about you? No, he looks horrified. He's a no. Kayla, pineapple? What does she think? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, yeah, my like computer freaked out. I'm on my work computer from like 2007. But I love letting people do what they want. That's my big
Thank you.
pro.
She's gonna support my pineapple love. How about Taylor? Pineapple?
I love pineapple on pizza. That's probably my most controversial opinion.
Thank you. Corey, we'll get you over to our side. Anybody, if you'd like to share with us in the chat, pineapple on pizza, where do you stand on this? So we will keep it open here for anyone who wants to raise their hand. Cannon literally ate pineapple on pizza today. Thank you, Cannon. Professor Ferguson says absolutely. Okay, we've got some pineapple fans. Joe, I'm going to turn it over to you to share a question with us. And we'll, like we said, if you have questions, either raise your hand or share them in the chat.
Okay, thank you. There's no questions yet, so hopefully we'll get some questions in. I do have a question. I've noticed this semester that I'm in classes with certain people that I was in classes with in past semesters who were going into education. Now they're saying to me, I don't know if I want to go into education. So do any on the panel, did any of you guys ever consider education, want to go into education and change your mind? And if you did, can you share your stories? And if you didn't, what advice do you have for our students who might think, I need to change my major now, because if I'm not going into education, what am I going to do?
I guess anecdotally, I didn't ever consider being a teacher. I think there's ways in which you could still be a mentor, be a teacher, do a lot of that shaping, especially of youth, and so many other ways in the community. So I don't think, if you continued down that education path, is that the worst thing? One of my really good friends actually at the Capitol, she's the liaison for the Department of Higher Ed. She was a teacher back in New York and then came to Colorado, was a legislative aide for awesome senator here, and then now is a liaison for higher ed. And so I think being a teacher, if that's something they still want to explore, I don't think that prevents you from going into another career field or having that degree. I don't think it limits you either. So I don't think, that's just kind of like anecdotally. I know people have done it, tried it out, changed career paths. And probably there's people who have gone the other way, like, oh, I'll never be a teacher, and then end up that way too. So I think, see, there we go, Dr. A. So I think there's totally so many ways that your career can unfold, and maybe being close to graduation is kind of scary, and they're just like, I'm not sure if this was the right choice, and that's totally a normal and okay feeling to have. But I don't know if my other panelists have any comments on that.
I never was interested in teaching, but I did know a lot of students at UCCS who planned on going into teaching, and they either changed their major or they did go into teaching after graduating, but then they switched their career path. So I guess the only advice I would give is, even after you've graduated, if you do graduate with an emphasis in teaching, it's not too late to change your career path. It's not like your degrees, you can't do something else. So I think, your education and the learning process doesn't stop once you graduate college. It's something that continues throughout the rest of your life. So, I mean, if you go into teaching after you graduate, you decide it's not for you, it's not the end of the world. You can still change your career path.
Yeah, I have very similar thoughts. That's something that really hits home for me. When I first came into when I first came into UCCS, I had changed my major. I think every semester I was like switching it up. When I first came in, I thought I was going to be a teacher, but a science teacher. I was in chemistry and biology classes, and so I experienced kind of the teaching program through that angle, not through the English angle. And luckily, my soul searching was more on the front end of college rather than on the back end. But kind of just piggybacking off of what my panelists have already said, I think there are so many lawyers who being a lawyer is kind of a second career. There's a lot who are actually teachers, and I think it kind of makes sense. A lot of litigators, I mean, you're kind of teaching a jury the law, and you're teaching them the facts, and so I think it's somewhat transferable. And I think that's common for any really changed majors. I think the great thing about college is so much of what you're learning is going to be transferable. The skills that I gained being a chemistry major, I can't say I use them every day, but when I'm putting in an order and I'm calculating the interest, that's not a skill that I gained in an English class. That was all math and science-based classes. So a lot of the things that you're learning are going to be transferable, and you can use them in a number of different careers.
Thank you, guys. There's still no questions, but I do have another question. So I know, Taylor, you discussed that you had started your LinkedIn profile before you even graduated. Do you recommend students do something like that within their junior and senior year? And then also, was there any extracurricular activities you guys participated in as students at UCCS that helped you build a professional network once you got out of school?
Yeah, so I definitely recommend college students start building up a LinkedIn profile. There's a couple of different networking sites people can use. There's also one called Handshake. There's another one called Andrew Hudson, and I can put these all in the chat. But I definitely recommend getting your resume built up. Utilize the Career Center, have them help you build up that online presence, because really, no matter what career field you're going into, having an online presence is really important when searching for a job. And then as far as extracurricular activities, I worked for the UCCS student newspaper, The Scribe, the whole time I was in school. So I gained a lot of experience in not only writing, but also photography, video, social media, podcasting. So pretty much everything I'm doing now, I did while I was still in school. So I was able to build up experience and build up my resume while I was in school. And then I also did several internships, and my favorite internship I did was actually a history internship. It wasn't an English internship, but I worked for the archives at the Olympic Center as a photographer. And that was something that really helped me build up my experience. So yeah, definitely look for opportunities to build up your resume, and, look for things that might be outside of the English department, because, you can do internships in other disciplines. But yeah, I definitely recommend building up your resume, building up that online presence before you even graduate.
Thank
For
you.
me, oh, sorry. Did you only want her
Oh, no, please,
Okay,
no.
sorry.
No.
So yeah, echo everything about LinkedIn. It's a great tool. I'm about to break 500 plus. I'm so excited. So add me if you want. In college, I was a tour guide. Like I said earlier, I worked at GOCA, the Gallery of Contemporary Art. I even got to be on their advisory board for 3 years after I graduated. So that was really awesome. I did a lot of stuff through the scholarships that I was provided. I was a Reach Your Peak scholar, which was really exciting, and got to do a lot of networking with alum and donors and that sort of thing. I also, I worked like the whole time I was in school, so I didn't really get to do like internships. I like slang yogurt one summer, and then I was in the military, so I did tons of different things. And those professional experiences kind of helped build my resume. And then by the time it was time to apply to Alpamar, I felt pretty well rounded. So even if you can't do an internship, I'm hoping internships are like paid now. So it's not difficult to obtain some of those things. I think even working while you're in school is totally valid and a way to build your network up, and build your resume too. So if you're like, I can't do an internship, or I can't afford to do an internship, like that's totally fine. Because I know that not all of them pay great. So there's other ways that you can get involved. I was also in College Democrats too. So there's tons of ways that you can get involved on campus, and also like provide for yourself, your families, whatever your journey looks like too. So
Yeah, I would echo everything that my panelists said. I think LinkedIn, finding opportunities is one resource for it. And I think also just there's so many jobs that are not posted, right? I mean, there's companies that need someone who aren't advertising it, and so much is happening by word of mouth. And by who you know. So I think having a strong network in that sense is fantastic. And then I'll say extracurricular. I joined the pre-law club at UCCS as soon as I thought I might be interested in the law, and it was so great because to get into law school you have to take an entrance exam essentially, and it was great to have kind of that network and to have people who are going through similar experiences. I also met my now fiance in that club, so you might meet a spouse at an extracurricular event as well.
Thank you so much, guys. We actually have some questions in the chat. So Shruti wants to ask you guys, what initially attracted you to the academic field of English?
I think I mentioned before, I was a sport management major. And I think when I was going into college, I kind of just did whatever my parents told me. And they were like, you need to make money, you need to be a business major. And I was like, I'm trying to have fun. So I joined the sport management degree. It was fun for a while, but it wasn't something I was truly passionate about. And then I ended up taking, I think it was business writing or writing for business majors or something like that with Professor Wall, and had like a heart to heart with him. And then ended up having like a mid-degree career crisis and joined the military, took some time off, and then being to have that financial freedom of, tuition assistance kind of made me have a heart to heart with myself. And I was like, what do I really want to do? And English had always been something I loved in high school. And I was like, well, if my degree is paid for now, like I can do what I want. And so that's kind of what brought me. And then the professors and this other students and all of the interesting things we got to learn let me stay, right? And so that's what initially drew me, was just like I had more interest in that class. And then once I was able to afford it and like dip my toe in further, I just like fully jumped in and embraced it.
For me, it took me a while to find my place with English, just because I was a non-traditional student. After high school, I worked full time for about 4 years, and I was kind of all over the place. I worked in retail, I worked in a daycare, I worked in a salon, I worked in a spa, I worked at a gym, and then I started going to community college. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was just taking basic classes, just trying to figure it out. And one of the first classes I took was an English class, and I really enjoyed that class. And the professor of that class called me into her office one day, and I was really nervous because I thought I was in trouble or something. And I went to her office and she sat down with me and she asked me, like, what are you doing with your life? Like, what do you want to get a degree in? And I said, I have no idea. And she said, well, you're a talented writer. You should consider English. And at that time, I thought all you could do with the English degree was go into teaching. And I told her, I said, well, I'm not interested in being a teacher. And she said, well, there's a lot more you can do with English than just teaching. And she kind of explained to me all the different things you can do. And so I really started to consider that. And I decided to major in English just because not only did I love writing, but also because I felt that English was a broad enough topic that it could translate to a lot of different things. Because I was hesitant to get a degree in something that was very specific, like nursing. Like if you get a nursing degree, you have to be a nurse. But like with English, you can translate that to a lot of different things. And so while I was in school, I, experimented with a lot of different jobs and a lot of different fields. And ultimately, what I discovered about myself was my favorite thing to do is tell stories. And that doesn't have to just be through writing, that can be through a lot of different mediums. And I feel like getting an English degree helped me develop that skill and being a good storyteller. And I think really any career field, being a good storyteller is a valuable skill to have.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I came into UCCS in kind of the science track, and I knew in high school, I knew I loved English and science classes, which is, I guess, a weird combination. But I was thinking of switching to English, and I was in primarily science classes. I let myself take one English class. It happened to be Professor Pazusta's kind of intro to literature class. And I read some Jane Austen, and I really enjoyed it. Is my favorite class that semester, and that kind of made the choice for me. And I think that just goes to show sometimes it's just kind of following your interests and what you enjoy.
Thank you, guys. And Corey, I'm going to ask you, did Professor Pasusta pay you to say that? Because I think she loves to bring up Jane Austen, or even have someone else bring up Jane Austen. And the fact she's on this call makes that even more amazing. Everyone, so Corey, Taylor, and Kayla have put their emails in the chat. So that means if you do have questions that you wanted to email them, I think they're all okay with you contacting them. So Katie has a question. She wants to know, what is the number one thing that we should do before we graduate?
I can go first. I think definitely reaching out to your professors and using them as mentors, and just asking them if they know of any opportunities, that are available, if they know of anyone who's hiring, or if they know about any paid internships. Definitely use them as a resource. And like I mentioned earlier, start getting your resume together, utilize the Career Center at UCCS. They also do practice interviews. So I definitely, while you're still a student, practice doing interviews, have them help you with cover letters. I would even maybe have them help you put together just kind of a generic cover letter that you can customize for different jobs that you're applying for. And if you do create a LinkedIn profile, ask your professors to write letters of recommendations on your profile. So your profile looks completed, and it looks like you're ready to go and you're ready to start applying for jobs. So I definitely recommend getting all that together before you even graduate.
I can jump in next. I think everything Taylor said is so crucial and important. Like your career and your next step is so like just valuable, and kind of why a lot of us do go to school. But I think the one thing that I do always think about college is just having fun and making sure you're making the most of like campus and the relationships and the opportunities you have there. My college roommate's actually visiting in town, and she's coming over right after this for her last day, and being able to like just embrace those relationships, and that I still have them 6 years later, 5 years later, I think is really a testament to how beautiful college experience is. And so just make sure you enjoy those. That was kind of sappy. I'm a Pisces. My birthday was Monday. So I'm like living all just like through my memories right now, but really truly just enjoy your time that you have left there.
Yeah, I would echo everything that my fellow panelists said. I think the only thing I might add is just consider taking a class that is just purely a fun class. I think there's a lot of classes that you want to take to build certain professional skills, but just taking a class that you're interested in for no other reason than it interests you, I think is important.
We have one more question so far. This is from Cannon Taylor. How many years did it take for you to establish your, sorry, the chat moved, establish your careers and feel confident in your direction after college? I'm a recent grad and I hate the idea of floating through the next few years working odd jobs, but failing to make headway in establishing myself in my desired career.
I could go first. So as I mentioned earlier, I worked at the student newspaper at UCCS the entire time I was in school. So by the time I graduated, I already had 4 years of solid experience. And then in addition to that, I also had done internships. So I had my resume pretty built up before I even graduated, which did help me land the first job I got after school. But if maybe you're not as confident in your resume, I think you could definitely look out for maybe paid internship opportunities after you graduate. There's also a lot of ways now to do freelance work because when I first graduated, it took me a few months to get my job with the Alumni Association, and I was just doing freelance writing prior to that. I started writing on the website Medium, which anyone can create an account on there and start writing. And there's a lot of other websites out there now that help you find freelance work. I can put those all in the chat, but there's a lot of ways to build up your resume. You don't necessarily have to wait on somebody to hire you. You can, make your own path depending on what you like to do, where your talents are. And I think with the internet now, there's so many different ways that you can, get yourself out there and advertise yourself. So if you don't feel like you have that resume by the time you graduate, I would definitely focus on looking into freelance work and paid internships after you graduate.
Yeah, I think being a lawyer, it's a little bit more linear. I was confident that I needed to make this work because I sunk in a good amount of money in getting this degree. And for me, I mean, I'm establishing myself now, so graduated in 2022, and choosing to become a law clerk is somewhat of a tactical decision. It's a very efficient way to get to know the legal field. You see everything coming in the court, and you get to see a huge amount of different types of cases. And so I think relating that to any other career, I think it'd be important to think through just tactically, if you're interested in this particular type of career, what kind of job will expose you to different aspects of that career, and thinking through the types of skills that you'll need to succeed and where you can develop those skills and where you're going to find mentors who are going to help challenge those skills and help you develop.
Yeah, and I'll take a quick second since we have like 3 minutes left, recognizing that I definitely won't say I feel super, like I'm ready in this career field, like this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. But we are halfway through the legislative session. I think everybody feels that, like, is this what I want to do anymore? But I wouldn't say I've bounced around, but I've done, 3 different departments in 3.5 sessions, right? And so I think that there's definitely cases where I could go on and do law school. I've like took my LSAT a couple months ago. And so who knows like where I'll end up. And I think that's the beauty of, this degree is I think the confidence in myself has grown in whatever skills I want to do or work I want to do. I think that is where I've always grown in my confidence. But, if I stay at the Capitol, if I go somewhere else, if I become a lawyer, if I don't know, become a teacher, who knows what I'll do, right? Like, I think that's the really fun part of this degree is you grow as a person, and then whatever career you want to do kind of follows from there. So if you don't feel super great, going into graduation, I think that's okay too. The right time will come, and the right jobs will come with that too.
That is the perfect spot for us to pause and wrap up. Thank you for these great questions. Thank you, Cannon and Shruti and Katie, for the questions you asked. Thank you all for being here tonight. I'm just going to put on the screen an email address if you have any comments about this event that you can reach out to. A huge thank you to our wonderful panelists. You 3 are amazing humans, and this was just really a wonderful experience, and I know a valuable learning experience for our students. The UCCS Alumni Association also wants to thank our panelists. They have a swag bag for each of you, so we'll be putting those in the mail to you all. Thank you all for being here, and hope you all have a good evening. Take care.